What is the greatest secret to free your mind? To find that out, we have to go back to ancient China. There was once a humble Taoist farmer who owned a horse. The neighbors told him they envied his luck, but he replied, maybe. One day, the horse broke out and ran into the mountains. This time, the villagers commented on his bad luck. Again, the farmer replied, maybe. Eventually, the horse came back with the full herd, prompting everyone to tell the farmer how lucky he was. Maybe was his response. When the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the horses, it threw him down, breaking his leg. The neighbors again mentioned his bad fortune, but maybe is what he said. The next day, soldiers took all the young men away except his son to fight in the war. None of the men came back. The story of the Taoist farmer questions the very definition of good and bad. A bad situation might turn out to be good, or vice versa. It all depends on how we react to the circumstance that we are placed in. The greatest secret to liberating your mind is that good and bad don't exist. If good and bad aren't real, then why do we believe in them? This notion stems from how our society developed. When we are young, parents encourage good behaviors and reprimand bad ones. Children's cartoons revolve around the good guys fighting the bad guys. This helps our developing brains understand the world better by categorizing things into different groups. It's like training wheels. However, as we grow up, we're able to process more abstract ideas and thus don't need an extra set of wheels anymore. Viewing something as black and white limits what we can see. Think of good and bad being a coin. They aren't separate. They're two halves that make a whole. Without one or the other, there wouldn't be a coin. In the story, the farmer's son is saved only because he broke his leg. This is an example of non-duality, the belief that everything is part of a connected whole. So, how will having tunnel vision on good and bad affect us negatively? First, it causes endless anxiety in us. In pursuit of favored results, we'll do everything we can in order to avoid the non-favorable ones. This can lead us to stressing over every single detail, even ones we can't control. Also, when we believe in dualism too seriously, we can miss out on things. If we go against the force of nature and only want good weather, we can miss out on the benefits that come with the bad conditions too. The Taoist farmer's stable, when empty, often seen as a bad result. However, he kept his stable doors open and his horse returned with the whole herd. This is to say, labeling into good and bad can be like locking a door to your possible growth. Finally, good and bad can result in mood swings. A student can get a good test grade and be overjoyed. Then, the next day, they could get a poor result and sulk the rest of the week. Defining into good or bad can cause us to have rapid shifts in emotion. Having certain emotions is beneficial, but not when they ping pong every minute of our lives. Again, the farmer is the perfect representation of this. When something labeled as good or bad happens, he remains in a neutral state. The farmer is the flow of water, rather than being a rigid block of earth. I've been explaining to you the negatives of dualism, but how do we solve it? The solution to our society's obsession with dualism is more simple than you think. The one change we need to make is to consider others' perspectives. Something that we think is bad can seem good in someone else's perspective. This is called empathy. When we put ourselves in the perspective of a different lens, we'll usually find out why someone supports it. We don't have to change our stance, but this opens our eyes to the whole picture. Before, we were viewing the world with one eye, one side, one perspective. Now, we open both our eyes to view the whole situation clearly. How about when good and bad are more personal to us? This is when we have to try and think of life as a process compared to one moment. Sure, we could take a step back, but what if that's the key to take 2 steps forward? Everything that happens to us is a tiny fragment of what we come to be. We aren't just made of good or bad pieces, we're made of both. So when a moment of benefit or detriment happens, drop the labels. Don't view it as a final victory or setback. Think of it as an evolution. Now, this doesn't mean we should get rid of good and bad labels entirely. They exist for a reason, to be tools for survival. We evolved to harness those tools, to steer away from danger. Our brains labeled touching fire as bad because it would pose a threat to our lives. Good and bad are useful, but they shouldn't rule our existence. Dualism can be used to make instinctive decisions, like to keep us safe from danger. Meanwhile, non-dualism should be the lens we use to view the world. Remember to embody the flow of a river, not too solid like the earth, or not too lofty like the air. Life is too short to live within the black and white confines of judgment. Drop those chains so we can live life with a more holistic approach. The Taoist farmer's response to good and bad was maybe. What's yours? If you learned anything new today or had a realization, consider subscribing to Mythical Llama and join the herd. Take care.